Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tru You podcast, a storytelling space for self discovery, where we use this safe and brave space to address racial trauma and healing for Black women through our own lived experiences. I'm Kelley, and this is my co host.
Hi, I'm Debbie. We're a mother daughter team having real conversations about real issues shared by and for Black women because we have something to say.
Yes, we do. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to once again share a great topic and have great conversation. I'm feeling great today. How are you feeling, Ma?
I am doing pretty good. Thank you for asking.
Good, good. Once again, I'm excited about our guest, who is not only our sister in Christ. She attends our church, but she is also our prayer partner, and she is more like family than anything else. Hi, Dina. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for that great introduction.
Yeah, I am so excited about this topic. I've had many friends and close acquaintances that talk about their struggles with fibroids, which is our topic today. And I felt it was important that we have this conversation. I'm so happy that our guest Dina agreed to talk and share her own experiences. And before we even get into her story, maybe Dina, if you can explain what uterine fibroids are.
Okay. Your uterine fibroids are they are a non-cancerous tumor that grows in the uterus or around the uterus, um, and they can cause different symptoms that can affect your day-to-day life.
Wow. Yeah, thank you, Dina. That's a great introduction to the topic because I've had many friends throughout the years that have had problems with fibroids. I didn't really understand it because this is something that was really not talked about when I was growing up. You just knew that people weren't, women were not feeling well and they had to take off of work for many days because they were having problems. And so, if you can just share a little bit about your first symptoms and how that journey began with you being diagnosed with fibroids.
Sure. So I wouldn't say an avid runner, but I did try. I knew running made me very healthy. And at one summer, I remember running five, I believe 6 5Ks between Memorial Day and my birthday, which is in July. And the next summer, I tried to do the same thing, but all of a sudden, I started experiencing heavier periods where I wouldn't even know when they would come. And then another thing that I was doing, I had started eating a lot of ice. And it was so bad where I would be at work and go into the kitchen and I would make cups of ice, like I would have maybe 2 or 3 cups and taking it over to my desk. And it was kind of like, a little embarrassing. Some people would probably hear me, crunching on the ice, but it was just something that I needed to have on a daily basis. So I looked into that and they were saying that that could mean that you had low iron. So I went to the doctor to see, maybe in 2015, I went in to the doctor and they did discover that I did have low iron, but that was all they said. They just prescribed me the iron pills. It was not an over the counter, but they gave me a prescription for the iron pills. I started taking the iron pills. It got a little better, but I believe what they have it is safe for your iron to be at 12, but my iron was, when they first tested me, it was at 11. So they just gave me the iron pills. They said, yeah, you have, you know, you're a little, I don't know if they said little anemic. I don't know all the doctor's terms, but they didn't feel like there was a big issue. So they prescribed me with the iron pills. And then they had me come back. But then at that point, I started experiencing bloating. periods where I was bleeding in between periods, and I just started sleeping all the time. I was always fatigued. And so in 2016, so this was maybe 4 years of dealing with that. 2016, I finally was diagnosed with fibroids. And it wasn't, a lot of people deal with multiple fibroids, but I only had one. And they told me that it was pretty big. It was the size of a grapefruit. They did a ultrasound where they had me drink a lot of water, and then they like measured it, and they discovered it was maybe like 10 centimeters. It was really big, so I had to, they told me about it. They discussed my options, and I immediately went to get a second opinion. At this time, I kind of put it off. My daughter was starting junior high. I was busy at work, in corporate America, and I also had started a new relationship. So it was just, I had just put everything off. And then when they were telling me about the surgeries, the different options that I had, I just had never had any surgery before. So I just kept putting things off until I got a new job. And once I got the new job, I was on the break. I always take like a little vacation before I start a new job. And I actually ended up in the emergency room because I had a very pain. I had a lot of pain. But no one's rushing to the operating room to have surgery. I know I wasn't. So that was something that I continued to live with for, I guess, another year and a half before I actually decided to do something about it.
Yeah, that's normal. And it's funny, the title is Suffering in Silence. And because a lot of black women, we wait to go to the doctor because we feel that the pain or the heavy bleeding days, it's normal. You think it's normal. And even once you found out what was going on with you, you continue to kind of put things off because we all have that superwoman complex, like we can do it all, or you're just too busy caring for others. You mentioned your daughter was getting ready to start middle school, and so how long did you wait though during this time? How long did you wait until you did something about it?
So from that point, my surgery took place in May of 2019. So that was from 2016 when I was diagnosed to 2019. Now, in the between that time, I did do my research. I looked at three options. A lot of people were right away telling me about getting a hysterectomy. Then there was the myomectomy, and then a third procedure, which I looked up from one of the, the well-renowned hospitals in Chicago. They had started it. It was called fibroid embolization, and that's where they shrink the fibroid. But they put emphasis on me signing over to acknowledge that this could affect me having additional children. So I looked at all of those, and with the fibroid embolization, they said it was the less invasive, but because they said that there may be a chance that I wouldn't be able to have kids. Now, I know hysterectomy, right away, no more kids. But the embolization, there was a chance that I wouldn't be able to have kids. So then I went back to my doctor and decided to go with the myomectomy, which is the one that they had recommended in the beginning. And the myomectomy is basically they remove the fibroid altogether, go in and an incision, sort of like a C-section, where they'll move the fibroid altogether. And that's what I decided to do. But I do have to make this one point where at the beginning of January, I, well, in between that time as well, so 2017, I got engaged. 2018, I got married. And then at the beginning of 2019, I had a friend who posted her testimony on Facebook and discussed how she had the myomectomy and how the myomectomy was able to, save her, and how she felt so much better. I think she was given like a 6 month update since she had had the surgery. And I immediately began to inbox her, found out that we actually, we didn't have the same doctor, but we did attend the same hospital. So I found out that she was able to. I found out that we did attend the same hospital. We had different doctors. So I was just like, this was a blessing. God had, sent this message that she was posting on Facebook when she was giving her testimony. It was made for me because I just reached out to her and I said, can I discuss this with you in more detail? And she was like, she was willing to share, all the information that she had. And I just felt confident. I had to feel confident about having the surgery. And that's when I decided to do it in May of 2019.
Well, I'm glad that worked out for you. What were the risks of the myomectomy?
So the myomectomy, it was just with because they had it to do the invasive surgery. Um, I could lose a lot of blood, and I would need to have a blood transfusion. So I did have to sign over that. And I think there was a chance for, not being able to bear children, but it wasn't as high as they weren't emphasizing it as much as they were for the embolization.
Thank you, Dina, for sharing that story. I really didn't know a lot about the fibroids and the conditions, but like hearing your story and doing research, it's really like enlightening, and just happy that you were able to share it. But um, within my research, I was alarmed to see. I looked at a study with the Michigan Medicine, with Michigan Medicine University of Michigan, and it stated that nearly a quarter of Black women between the ages of 18 and 30 have fibroids, compared to about 6% of white women, and by 35, that number increases to 60%. But the reasons for that are still very unclear. I also found that despite like the minimally invasive options, that Black women are twice as likely than white women to have the hysterectomy. And so you didn't state like your age, but I'm guessing it was in that range when you found out. So what are your thoughts about this as you were going through this journey and trying to figure out your options?
There was a lot because when I was first um, diagnosed with anemia, at that point in time, there was no reason given. There was no further research that was done for me to discover that it was fibroids for another few years. So at that point in time, where with a doctor, it's like, what is the cause of my anemia? So I was just looking at that, and I know that I've, heard many times that Black women, a lot of times when they express their concerns, they do go ignored. And I realized that I was a victim of that, where when I was trying to find out the cause of my problems, it took another 3 years for that to get resolved, or not to get resolved, but just to find out what was going on with me. So I definitely, continue to pray for, our Black sisters. And I love the fact that, now there are podcasts like your podcast that help us with, seeing that, don't just go and just follow the routines of the doctor. Sometimes, you go to the doctor and it's maybe like 15 minutes that you're in there and then you're out. But if you have questions, prepare questions and let them know that, hey, I'm going to bother you. This is your job. This is what needs to be, you are supposed to be, keeping me with the clean bill of health. So, however you can help me, please do it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you advocated for yourself, and even that you went to get a second opinion, because a lot of times, like, when you hear news like that, it's devastating. Depending on where you are during that time in your life, but also just being able to feel comfortable asking the tough questions, and going further like you did with your research. So that's awesome. I commend you on that, Dina.
And also, I did have someone I knew who did have a hysterectomy who was younger than I was. And I knew that I wanted to have more kids. I knew that I was, the woman with the issue of blood, but I knew that I could, if I touched the hem of his garment, that I could be healed. And God has the last word. And so I looked at the embolization. I was, I had fear, but I had prayed. So the fear had to put it away. And I did, after I had the surgery, did end up having to have a blood transfusion because I did lose a lot of blood from the surgery. But I was able to have the blood transfusion. I signed over to do it. That was another fear that I did have. So it was just letting God work and believing in His promise.
Amen. And I'm so glad you said that because I, I, I think I was with you during that time and praying mightily for you, knowing what you were going through. And I'm
Yes.
grateful that you are a woman of prayer as well. And just thank God for you. But now, as a result of that, you were able to have a little one shortly after that surgery. And just wondering about your any complications with that pregnancy, and now again you're pregnant, even with this new pregnancy. Any complications since then, since the surgery?
Yeah, so I actually want to tell, like, when I talk about this, because so in 2019, after I had the surgery, they wanted me to go on birth control right away because they wanted to make sure that I was healed. So from May to December, they wanted me to do that for 6 months. So December, I got off the birth control. March of 2020, I was pregnant. Now that pregnancy did end up in a loss. Then March of 2021, I got pregnant and I had a baby in December. And then December of 2022, I got pregnant again. So this is just all a blessing, where it was just like after that I had my middle baby now. She was born. She was my rainbow baby, because I remember, with that, I just remember in 2020, it was at the beginning of the pandemic, found out that I was expecting, and then trauma happened too. I remember, like, May, because they wouldn't make you wait about 8 weeks before you have your first ultrasound, and during that time, the George Floyd incident happened, and I know that that really affected me, and and that baby, did not make it, and then so it was discouraging because it was, I didn't, I was praising God because pregnancy could happen for me. I realized that that happened, and then in 2021, He waited until my body was ready and I was ready mentally, and He blessed me with my second baby girl.
Amen. What a
I love
and
that.
it is a blessing. It is truly a blessing.
Yes.
And it's just funny as
Sorry.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I got so excited about that I didn't tell you about the complications. So I I am a woman. I'm 40 years old now. I'll be 41 next month. So my first pregnancy, well, after the surgery, I was 39. So I've already had to experience, what do they call it, the geriatric pregnancy. So I was reminded every day that you're an old woman having a baby. So, so In that time, I did experience just gestational diabetes, and I just found out you have to take the test at 24 weeks. So I had to do I experienced gestational diabetes, but besides that, the pregnancy was pretty normal. I just had to. I didn't have to get any insulin. I just had to change my diet, where I had to count my carbs every day, make sure between 15 and 30 calories for snacks, and if it was a meal, 45 to 60, I'm sorry, carbohydrates. So I had to make sure that I kept on track with that. And then all of the pregnancies, future pregnancies, because of the incision, all of my future pregnancies would have to be cesareans for, let's see, and I would have to deliver early. So as soon as I am at term, which is 37 weeks, I they'll schedule a cesarean for me so that I can deliver at 37 weeks instead of waiting the 40 weeks or going into labor.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, those are some definite risks, some complications. So thank you for sharing that because we don't know that. And so we're grateful that you were willing to share as much as you have. But as I think about it, as we think about it though, is there a risk of those fibroids coming back? And if so, would you need to go through that same surgical process again?
So I think there is a risk. I actually have, when I did my ultrasound, I actually have, they found smaller ones, but they said, I mean, they're not impacting, my periods. I don't feel bloated. But they did discover them while they were doing, like, ultrasounds, my routine ultrasounds. So there is a risk for them to come back. But I currently they're not as invasive because I asked the doctor about that as well. So it would probably be a choice, my choice. But I feel that during my childbearing years, I want to keep the childbearing years open and not do anything to interrupt, so to speak.
Amen. Praise God. Thank you, Dina. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, and what a blessing um, to be able to not have only one pregnancy but two after such a invasive procedure, and not only that, um, being at an older age and needing to go through a cesarean each time. There's a
Yeah.
risk in that as well, and so being able to just know those risks and that those complications are a possibility. But what a blessing um, that we're going to be having a new little one soon. So I'm excited about that and just adoring the baby now. So, but I do want to kind of just bring us around because you talked about trauma and the trauma of the pandemic and the George Floyd situation. And
Yes.
this podcast is about identifying trauma, but also what we need for that racial healing. These health disparities are clear when it comes to women and dealing with these fibroids, but there's also an emotional and mental aspect. And you didn't really, I know you kind of touched on that and how you were feeling at that time with the frustration
Yeah.
and just trying to get all the information that you could, but also needing to deal with your everyday life and being a parent and having a family and work, etc. Because we want to be able to share, these things with others who might be going through those same things, what is something that you could share with others that could provide peace and healing?
Yes. You have to, I believe that one of the reasons why I did put things back so far is because of the pressure that black women have in the workplace, where you don't get, you're not afforded some of the grace that others are afforded. So it was me looking at having to take 6 to 8 weeks off of work, that was a big thing for me. So it was at a company that I had actually worked 10 years for, and it was like, why am I still thinking that this would be okay? To take this time off to have this surgery. But at that time, we were stretched pretty thin, and I was, didn't want to, interrupt things at that point. And then I had gotten a new job, and when I got the new job, it was, oh man, it's too soon to, although my health care had kicked in right away, it was just like, it was too soon. I have to make sure that it's at a point where, I'm in the door, where I'm like, I'm feeling comfortable in the door. And I did emphasize work life balance, where there were times where at my job I was able to, work from home on those days where, you get up and you're it's your time of the month, and you're walking to the office is like a struggle, where you have to wear multiple uh, sanitary napkins in order to just walk to the office, and you're changing them so much, like before meetings, where it's like you know just the different things that you had to do when it was dealing with the blood flow from the periods. So it was just work life balance is something that the job is going to be there. If you're not there, they're going to replace you right away. They're going to find something to do. You're not the one that's holding the company up, although it may seem that way. You're not the one that's doing that. So just make sure that work life balance as you work and as you go through corporate America, or if you're already in corporate America and you know you need to take the time off to take care of yourself. Just make sure that you are making the time for yourself. That was something that I had to figure out how I had to do, where it's just like, oh man, it doesn't feel right, taking this time off. The only time I had taken the time off from work was when I had my older daughter. And so, it was just like, just not even wanting people to be in your business as well. That's something too, where it's like, because you don't have that trust, you know what I mean? Because of racial disparities, where it's just like, if you tell too much, this may come and backfire on you. So, you know what? I'm working from home. Any details, anything I can help you with? And then it's like, hey, I'm having this surgery. It's just like, fill it out. And, a lot of times you don't have where, some people say, bring your true self to the office. You're always, as I feel as Black women, we're always holding back certain things. You know what I mean? Like, this is all, I see sometimes, when I'm in the office and I'm doing Zoom calls, some people, like, they show their whole background, and it's just like, until I trust you, you're going to see this yellow wall back here. So it's just, those are the type of things where it's just like, you have to feel comfortable. And a lot of times we aren't afforded the right to feel comfortable because we don't like the results when we do give ourselves to others. We don't like the results. So we kind of, hold back a lot. And I remember another thing where, I noticed that when I would be in the office, that I had a friend who, I had worked with before, and then we had stopped working together. And I noticed that around the George Floyd happening, that a lot of times when we would like meet up for lunch or like schedule a time for lunch was when something had happened in the news, whether it was, Trayvon Martin, or something that happened that was that impacted the Black community. That was the time where we needed to break free to talk to someone who could relate to us, because a lot of times we don't see the people who we can relate to in the office space. So sometimes we kind of need that to heal as well. So with the George Floyd thing, where I would be working, I would be working working from home and working from home and having that news on, listening to it. I remember I listened to it for like 48 hours straight.
Amen.
The TV was on. I slept with the TV on, just listening to, it as it developed. And I knew that that was not healthy. So sometimes you have to, tune things out to understand. But it was the only thing I would say that it was safe because we really didn't have to deal with going into the office every day to see that happening or to see get a crazy comment or to see how we're dealing with things internally and everybody else is like you know having a a great time, you know what I mean, or just like not even expressing, not even sharing any empathy, you know or not feeling forced to share any empathy,
Because
so
they don't have to. Right.
exactly.
They don't have to.
So
But one thing I do want to bring up, though, Dina, is the fact that all that you've been through, and the one thing you have not brought up is the fact that when you went through all this, you were in school as well. Not only were you
yes.
raising your daughter, you had just got
Yeah.
married, and got a new, in this job, you're finishing up your master's. So we are sometimes like Superwoman, and you continue to
Yeah.
go forward, and God provided. And I am just so grateful for just
Mm-hmm.
how you have come through. What a gift you have been, and what a gift you have been to this podcast. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for sharing your story with us. And it takes a lot, and we appreciate it. We don't take anything lightly. We are
Mm-hmm.
so grateful for your sharing your story. And so I just want to say that's it for us. Thank you all for listening. I want to thank our special guest, Dina, for joining us, and just want to tell everyone to just have a wonderful week and have a joyous rest of the day. And God bless each and every one of you. Bye bye.
God bless.
Bye. Thank you, Dina.
All right, thank you.
True You is brought to you by Radiant Vessels and sponsored by Proviso Partners for Health. Funds for True You, a storytelling space for self-discovery, were received from the Oak Park River Forest Community Foundation.